Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. I'm Kisma and I'm completely excited for the episode today. It is part 2 in our series of how to access your gifts, talents, and magic. And today we're going to talk about how to activate your magic in your DNA. Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set.
Hello there, Nick.
Hey there, Kisma.
That intro sounded a little cosmic, activating your DNA, but I think we're really going to get there.
Yeah, we totally are.
Yeah.
We totally are.
Because last week, if you haven't listened, part 1 of the series, we were really talking about how to identify the gifts. And when we say gifts and talents and magic, we're going back to that creative expression, the joy, the things that in part of us were just crying out to do, but somewhere we stuffed it down or we think we shouldn't, or all those
are the stories we're going to get to dive into today. I'm super excited about that. Yeah. But it's locked inside of us, you know? And I think when I look at a human being, I just know that there is potential beyond potential within every single human being that we can't even imagine.
This is true.
So I don't think magic is a stretch by any means. Like, I think magic is, maybe scratching the surface a bit of what's really in there for each of us, but it's truly, and it's a magical process to just watch it unfold. So it's it's so exciting in so many different ways.
Well, when you think about it, everyone, if we approach the world from the perspective that everything is magical and we have this sense of awe and wonderment, we really do send a higher frequency out. It's more of like that, wow, this is incredible, instead of, this is happening to me.
Yeah.
And
I have to do all these things.
Exactly. When we get down into the weeds of, I have to do this, life is hard, it's not fair. It's just a heavy vibe and it won't serve. And so one way to break out of that heavy vibe is to really tap into some of those magical gifts that maybe some of you are rocking and rolling, which is great. Perhaps some of you stopped them because you got busy with your job or your business or family. And this is about getting them back out and really activating them in your life.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a really interesting kind of subsection of that, actually, where people in their business, and oftentimes people like us as small entrepreneurs, is like, we'll build a business around something that we're good at or something that, we love to do. And then we wind up getting really caught up in the businessy parts of it, and all the other stuff. And it's like, there's not as much time to actually do that thing, right? But I think that's true in a lot of people's lives. And one of the things that starts to shut it down is just life. Life gets in the way. You got kids, you got business and work stuff. You've got all these other things, family, and trying to allow some time for yourself to be in that, whether it's a creative space or that place of genius for you, or just that place where there's that real spark, and being able to bring that and have the energy and the focus to bring that to your work so that your work can be brilliant no matter what your work is.
For sure.
And all of it, when you get the system kind of working, it all starts to work for each other. But when it's hard to bring the time in, or you're just feeling blocked or stuck around it, or like, what is it? And some of the things that we're going to talk about today, it just starts to stop up that whole system. And it just makes it hard to get to really own those gifts for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And, we did a little bit of identifying last week through what brings you joy. And this week we wanted to go deeper with that and kind of have everyone sort of do a little dig or a little dreaming or use the imagination. The imagination is a higher faculty of the mind. If we go back to being a child, we fantasized and used our imagination a lot.
Tons,
right? And it was an amazing thing. And imagination is what creates things, right? Have to see it in our mind, and it creates iPhones and computers and spaceships and love and all this stuff. But when we get put into an educational system where there's structure and we need to be taught and, there needs to be some sense of order, very often that's when the imagination kind of gets put to the side.
Yeah.
And then kids go home and there's homework and there's things and there's chores. And if we sit around and just imagine, we're told we're lazy. Mm. And that's very sad to me because I do think the power of the mind is that our mind can take us anywhere.
It's true.
Even if we've never been, our mind can imagine it. Mm. So, for everyone listening, we were thinking a great process to go through to further identify and then activate your gifts, your talents, your magic is to take a few moments where you just kind of get into a space and dream, really dream big about what's that thing. If you just had no time worries, no money worries, no people worries, you would just go and do and have so much fun and so much joy. Mm. What would that be for you, Nick?
Well, for me, I think about it like I'm doing the work that I absolutely love to do.
That is true.
And
we're lucky. Both of us are lucky that way.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so incredibly grateful to be doing what I'm doing. But when I look at it in the bigger picture, they think one of my talents came out after really in my college years. This one really started to express college years and beyond is I throw a great party.
Yeah, you do.
I really throw a great party, and through many years, like he's still best friend, really good friend of mine. And we were roommates together in this house, this kind of dumpy place. Rent was super cheap, but that was the place to go. And everybody would just come over. It was just, come on in kind of place. And we always, we'd be entertaining a lot. We'd have people over a lot, just doing our thing. And I found that like I loved having a space like that. I loved being able to do that. And for me, like as I think about the bigger picture of things, the grander scheme of things, within energy mastery, within my business and my own, coaching practice, and that is about that kind of vibe where, it's a come as you are sort of thing, and just bring yourself, come on and let's play together. We would hang out, we would be playing trumpet quartets until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, geeking out on these old trios, or maybe having a brass quintet play. And for whatever reason, our neighbors never, I think we got the cops called on us once, and we are not even sure that the cops were called on us. We think they might have just been driving by during one of the parties. But, we would just have these things, and somebody would pick up a hand drum and start playing. And it was just really a creative environment. And I just loved it. And when I was done, I would go upstairs and go to sleep. And maybe both of us that lived there were asleep, and there's a whole gang of people downstairs enjoying themselves in our house. And I thought that was like so much fun for me. So when I think about that in my business today, I think about like, it's really important for me to be doing events, and to be not only just doing events, but having fun doing them, making people feel at home. Like this is their space too. And we can all create something together here, and how people come into that vibe. So, that's kind of how I think about it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's something I'm working towards.
Yeah. So you kind of get the gist. Everyone is like, just, what is the dream? Like if you had 24 hours or 48 hours to just go off and play, what would you do? Would you be sitting in the Harry Potter library reading? Would you be on a sailboat? Would you be painting? Would you be dancing or drumming? There's so many things. And when you get to that, then you want to ask like a few sub questions. One of them first is like, how does that make you feel to think about it? Does it feel warm and exciting and happy? And you begin to feel this shift in energy, which usually does when we tap into something magical.
Yeah. When I even just thinking about it,
you're getting excited about your parties.
I get excited about it. And I think about, all the cool, like when we at the Supermind, like it was so much fun to take a break and to spin some tunes, and everybody's goofing around and we're dancing. Like it's just fun. It's just really fun.
For sure. So, when you get to that thing, then what would stop you from doing it? This is the question we got to ask ourselves. Like, what's the belief? What's the old story, the old opinion, or what are people going to think that would keep you from going off to paint, going off to pick pumpkins or whatever this thing is that would bring you so much joy and you get so excited. Where is it that the dreams and the magic got pushed to the side instead of being a part and activated in your life?
And this is really, I think, the biggest part of our conversation today is just, well, okay, what are those things?
The things in the way.
Yeah. Like what, and I think you put it beautifully, is like when you pause, everybody, and just notice for yourself. Maybe you take a breath with it. Maybe you just notice what shifts in your body or in your energy that starts to put a choke on it.
Brings up a little excuse.
Yeah.
Well, I'll do it later. Or no, I can't really.
Well, that's interesting because that's a place where a lot of people just, that's the end answer. No. I'll get to it later. I'll do it in something. I really want to do that thing, but just below that is something
Right.
about that.
Right.
I can tell you what it was for me, or one of the ones that stands the way for me is I have ideas. I was brought up with ideas about what businesses do and what businessmen do. And that was not one of them, like having a fun dance party or just having a bunch of people hanging out and just doing what they do. That's not part of it.
Yeah.
It's not businessy. And I thought, well, that's silly. Like I can build a business any way I want. I think I want my business to be more fun,
It'll be more vibrant if it's more fun.
Right. So that was one of them that came up for me.
That's a really good. Yeah. So when we get to those beliefs or thoughts, or like I've had, when I've taken some people through this exercise, they'll be like, oh, but it's so dumb of me. No, it isn't.
Yeah.
Anything that brings us joy, makes us feel more alive. It's like last week we talked about the creative mind. It's bringing up that creative essence and mind in us so that we do have more energy, so that we don't look down on life. We're looking up to life. And so that's part of the whole process, is finding that essence and magic so that life becomes compelling every single moment again.
Yeah. Those little, and it doesn't have to be really, really big things. It can be smaller things in life. I think about one of the ladies at the Supermind retreat, like this super dynamic woman who's leading literally thousands of people in a huge company. And she's got a Care Bear shirt on.
I know, it's the best.
And I just looked over at her and I'm like, I know what, and you're like, my brain didn't compute for a second. I'm like, where's your business suit? She's got a Care Bear shirt on. She's rocking that Care Bear shirt.
Totally.
It was so cool. And it just made me think and then when I watched her do her art and everything like that, I was like, oh man, it's just the most amazing thing. But that's her bringing that sparkle,
right?
Like her real magic into the situation. She just lights up a room.
Totally.
And I think if she tried to just be that super, stern, she can go there if she needs to, but if she had to live like that, to be that super stern, serious business person, it'd be so oppressive for her in her life.
Well, I also think that's where burnout happens.
Oh yeah.
When we're in the whatever we're supposed to be in, for whether it's a business or a job or whatever. So sometimes we're stepping into roles. It's fair. I'm not going to show up with a client in my sweats. Sure. I wouldn't do that. So sometimes we step into different roles or ways of being, yet if we're staying in the very serious, or the one that, say, we're using to bring in money in our business or jobs or whatever, we're going to hit burnout because there isn't the breath of the magic and the fun and the dreaming and fulfilling the dreams.
Yeah, the full expression.
Right. And I'm glad you said that it can be small, because I think sometimes people start to get attached to the idea. And this could be it too. Like a big dream is like a cruise or vacation, and go do it. That's great. Yet we're talking about those magical things we can incorporate every single day. It doesn't have to be the huge vacation or the cruise or whatever that happens once a year or every couple of years. It's about bringing that essence in all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really important. And so that's just a few examples. What is it that really comes up for you, the listener, when you think why can't you?
Right.
You don't have time. All right, but you make time for a lot of things.
Social media and TV.
Yeah. just to name a few, and who knows what else,
Right.
that may not be the most productive time. You find it, in little ways because you can. And so why not for this?
Right.
Did somebody tell you at a certain point that that's not okay? Like they told Kisma, what was it that
I would just be doing weird little hand healing stuff when I was young.
That is so cool.
I know. I remember at my grandmother's house, and my grandmother's like, "What are you doing?" And then I remember telling my mom I had a problem. Like they probably thought I was OCD or something. I was just doing my thing.
That's so funny. What did were they like afraid that you were going to embarrass them, or?
I think it was just like, it was just odd.
That's weird. Like
yeah.
you do that.
Yeah.
But that's one that I've definitely heard before on several occasions is like, oh, if you're going to embarrass, like what will the neighbors think?
Right.
And that's an interesting one, because it's the family name at stake, and the reputation and God knows, like if you're the weirdo, like I was definitely the weirdo, in my family, going out and trying, being a musician and doing this and then quitting and finally attaining a steady job and then quitting my steady job to go like teach yoga. And then now what I do,
right.
It's like my family doesn't really necessarily know what to make of that.
Right.
And, if I had stayed stuck in that part of it, I might have never followed any of it.
Yeah. And you would have hit burnout for sure.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Even following a little piece of it and just not really fully expressing it, I got burned out.
Yeah.
What are some of the other ones? What are some of the ones that you hear of like, oh, like why can't you or
Well, for some reason it does not feel important. And so I think that's the purpose of this series, to say actually what brings you joy, your dreams, your magic is way more important than you might know at this time. Because it's a pattern interrupt of just the hustle and bustle and of the noise. It is something that lights up your heart. It's something that activates your brain, your mind. So it is more important than you could ever imagine.
It reminds me of this great quote. I've seen it float around a bunch of times, and it says, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive."
That's perfect.
That's Howard Thurman.
He's so good.
It's so it's so true. Like we don't need another person who's on autopilot, going through life mechanically. Like, we talked about mysticism, and the mystic next door and what that's all about. Well, mysticism is about coming alive. It's about coming back to that truest nature of yourself. It's about unlocking within you those gifts, that magic, that something special that is truly who you are at the core.
Yeah.
And in the highest way, that is the infinite supreme self.
Right.
But in this, a human expression, there's something just truly amazing about you and what lights you up that way home. Like that's unlocking it and activating it within your DNA. It's letting that come through so that you can light up the room in your own unique way. I just think that's like so important.
It's so perfect. And if that's not compelling for y'all to go out and do something joyful, I don't know what is. But I'll tell you what can hinder you activating, having this bit of magic and joy is it will feel uncomfortable for some people.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's kind of the third part of this process. First you just dream, use your imagination, like get into that place of, whoa, this is what I want to do, or this makes me so happy, or I got to go ride a bike, And then you kind of examine all the things, all the beliefs that show up, all the reasons why you shouldn't or can't, or all that stuff that is BS. And then make the choice to do it and just see it through. Because there could be moments of being uncomfortable, maybe even a little bit scary. But once you get into it, just as this quote stated, you're going to feel more alive. And that energy and that essence of the energy will carry you through. And then it's going to be like, you'll want to do more of it because you feel different. You feel more present, more alive.
Yeah. Yeah, that first part is a really tricky one to get over, because think about some of the things around that, the stories around failure, or looking foolish.
Yeah, looking foolish is a big one.
Then the humiliation that can come from that, or the rejection that can come from that. Well, those things are significant. Like they're really significant. It's not okay for us to fail or to look cool. And in business, as we've discovered, failure is not separate from success. It's actually part of success.
Absolutely.
That you really are not going to have success unless you fail. So I love people that say fail fast,
Yeah.
I like the idea of it. I don't necessarily
like being in it.
Yeah. I don't necessarily enjoy the experience of it all the time. I love the idea of it. But I also don't like to think about it so much in the terms of failure as like, okay, one more step. That's kind of how I think.
Yeah. One more step of growth, one more step of learning for sure. So even whatever it is you choose to do in this magical gift exercise, there's no failure.
Yeah.
There's just kind of a fun, like, wow, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And that's a cool that's a cool something to bring into our lives. Like, let's just see what happens.
Yeah. Well, it brings me back to the Supermind retreat again and the watercolors. And it reminded me of a story that I used to tell myself that I'm not creative, which is funny.
Interesting. Because you're a musician.
I had that. But what's interesting about it was that for me, my creativity didn't show up the way that I thought it was supposed to. So when I think about it in music, it's like, okay, well, sit down and like write a symphony, that's creativity. Or, play this amazing, jazz improvisation out of nothing, that's creativity to me. And I couldn't do those things. Like, I'm not very good with a blank page, but give me something to work from. And I can, that's where my creativity really starts to shine, to take it and do something really cool or unique or different with it, take it in a different direction. And the watercolors reminded me of that.
Yeah.
Like, it just reminded me of that story that I used to have. And it's funny because I used to really love playing jazz, but I actually stopped it shortly after high school.
Wow.
I got it for a couple of reasons. Like, one of them was I really was just truly enamored and fascinated with the classical repertoire, and I wanted to learn how to play orchestral music. And once I started down that rabbit hole, I just went for it. I just loved it. But the other part of it was not so bright and shiny. It really had more to do with, I'm no good at this. I'm never going to be that good at it. And because I'm not creative.
Oh, well, that needs to go away.
Yeah. Well, it took a while.
Yeah.
It took a while for me to really understand that and
Right.
understand what I had done and what I had closed myself off to. But it's something that's funny though. It's still in the back of my mind of, if and when I pick up my trumpet again, that's where I'm going with it.
That's great.
I want to play some jazz or some things like that and have some fun and start with it really fresh.
Yeah. So I would suggest for our listeners, if this is resonating, one of those, I'm not creative, I'm not a good dancer, I'm not a good skater, pivot it, turn it around to, I'm so receptive to having fun with this. Like, I'm super receptive to creativity. I'm super receptive to dancing. Don't make it have to be a certain way. This is all about coming back to the magic and the gifts and the joy.
I love that you put it that way. That's actually really beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, say that one more time, please.
So rather than going into, I'm not this, I'm not creative, I'm not that, turn it around. You can say this to yourself. You can write it as, I am super receptive to. What's the thing you want to do? I'm super receptive to roller derby. I'm super receptive to dancing. I'm super receptive to being creative and to singing, right? Change that, because you'll be surprised as you change your belief and become receptive, you will have more opportunities and you'll just enjoy it more.
So I'm writing that down for myself.
Go for it. So go out and play, everyone, right? So dream, look at what comes up that just you would love to do and how that makes you feel. Examine some of those beliefs, like, Nick, have you been telling yourself you're not this, you can't do that for years? Reframe that into, I'm super receptive to doing it, and be willing to take those steps. For some of you, it'll be a blast right away. For others, you might be a little scared, uncomfortable. See it through, because it's going to bring so much life and energy that will magnify in other ways so much.
Yeah. Take that and run with it. You can set some of those things aside for yourself just for the moment and just step outside of it and outside of yourself and into a new version of you.
Right.
The challenge, I think, is just how do we sustain that over the long term? That's always a big challenge in order to really fully integrate into your life. And that's really where coaching or mentorship comes in. That's where the ultimate life tool becomes invaluable to figure out, like, okay, well, what's a really sustainable way for you to do that? Well, those sorts of tools are there for you. For now, this is something that you can take and just sort of step outside of the box, step outside of yourself and play. And then if you want to take a deeper step, those tools are there for you.
Love it. All right, everyone. Thanks for being here, and go rock your creativity, magic, talents, and gifts.
Peace.
Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.